This is Matt McGarry, ABC News correspondent, who is live in Beirut, Lebanon. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning. That Chilcot report was 7 years in the making. It's a new report that is extremely critical of former Prime Minister Tony Blair and the way he went about presenting the case for war in Iraq. It also heavily criticizes the British military's lack of preparation, it says, for combat, and it's the Army's performance during the invasion. The report says that despite claims from Tony Blair that Saddam Hussein posed an imminent threat, the report says that that simply was not the case and that Britain did not do enough to try and find alternative, diplomatic, and peaceful resolutions instead of rushing into war.
What does the report say about the relationship with Tony Blair and President Bush and the U.S. intelligence and all of that connection?
It's also, it's very critical of Blair's relationship with President Bush, and it points to a memo which Tony Blair sent to Bush in 2001, so 2 years before the invasion of Iraq, already seemingly to hatch that plan. And so the allegations are now being leveled against Tony Blair, certainly, and the implication being President Bush, that they had it in mind to attack Iraq, and they were just looking for the reasons to present to their people in order to justify that action.
Matt, why has it taken 7 years for this report to finally be written?
Well, it's a very thorough report. It extends to several hundreds of volumes of printed books, and it was an independent, impartial report. I think, we're used to, in America, we're used to congressional reports or investigations, which are very partisan. Many times the investigations are only launched in order to try and find fault with the people of the other party. But this is entirely independent, so they wanted to make sure they had a thorough examination of all the aspects of this. They conducted many interviews over the years, and so it's a very thorough and independent report. And essentially, it's very critical of the way the justification for going to war was presented. Now, it's important to note here that the report does not make any kind of a legal judgment on the war itself, on the military action, but it just criticizes the way the evidence was presented to the people of Britain in order to convince them to go to war.
Matt, with all this Brexit vote and fallout from that, this report now comes just on the heels of all of that. How is this report being received there?
Well, it's very badly received in Britain. There are a number of people who have been calling for war crimes trials against Tony Blair for a number of years. I don't think that is likely to happen. This report does not, again, rule on the legality of the conflict. It only criticizes the way that the evidence was presented. And Tony Blair himself has apologized for what he calls any mistakes made, but he defends himself by saying that all the decisions that he made were in good faith. But it's certainly a blow to the morale, again, to the British people. As you mentioned, coming on the heels of this Brexit vote, the British pound is way down against the dollar for the first time in 30 years, and it's just a very uncertain time for Britain in general.
Matt, while we still have you, how much of the report details the rise of ISIS and how directly connected that is to Saddam Hussein no longer being in power?
Well, it's inferred that that the attack on Iraq created a lot of chaos and left the region in anarchy. So many of these groups like ISIS, like al-Nusra, like al-Qaeda have been able to thrive and prosper given the fact that Saddam Hussein was gone and given the fact that it's kind of created a lot of instability throughout the entire region.
Matt McGarry, ABC News correspondent, live in Beirut, London. Matt, thanks for checking in.